3 Super Bowl champions, 5-time NFL Executive of the Year. So it's funny, you and I talked about this the other day on my podcast. We talked about this, that people look at what Belichick's doing and go, whoa, Bill's crazy. But Bill's always been better with NFL talent than college talent. Let's go back and remind people, at the beginning of the dynasty, he had done this earlier.
Colin, yeah, in 2001, we signed 23 free agents. Now, we didn't spend this kind of dough. We spent the total amount of signing bonus dollars, total of $2.5 million. But that free agent haul that we had was so good. It was Mike Vrabel, it was Brian Cox, Anthony Pleasant, Mark Edwards, Mike Compton, all these names that people don't remember, Terrell Buckley, Matt Stevens starting at safety. Again, we brought in so many players, and what we did is we always paid attention. My background was in pro personnel, and Bill, obviously, as a coach, knew what was playing in the league. So what we did is we had a good idea what was playing in the league. Oh, I forgot Larry Izzo. There's another name. Yeah. So doing things through free agency has always been a staple of the Patriots dynasty. And it's just a matter of getting the right kind of players that fit Bill's culture and his personality right. And hopefully they're doing that again this year.
I said I didn't love what the Jets did. Corey Davis, it feels like a Jet side. It's a lot of talent, but has not been consistent. Whereas Belichick got a lot of B to B plus players who have been very productive, are very young, and outside of tight end, where they had to spend money. They're just bad at it. The rest of the signings, to me, felt like value signings. I don't love spending a ton of money on an inconsistent wide receiver for the Jets. Tell me I'm wrong.
Well, here's what they did. To me, Colin, this wasn't about any one player in isolation. This was about a collective. What they needed to do was improve their pass catchers. Everyone wants to focus on, they've got to have a receiver. They've got to have a tight end. But, the third down back is important. 2 tight ends are important. Additional receivers are important. They improved their team's pass catching ability significantly by signing 2 good wide receivers and 2 good tight ends. So to me, this is more about the collective. They didn't go into this saying, okay, if we get Hunter Henry, it's over, that's it. If we get Jonnu Smith, it's over, that's it. They went in for the collective, and this is big picture what they like to do, Colin.
Yeah, no, that's New England. I'm talking Jets now. So Jets go out.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so the Jets get Corey Davis, who's the opposite of that. Big price tag, never delivered. I'm not a fan of going huge star wide receiver who's been inconsistent. Your thoughts on that signing?
I'm sorry, I apologize, Colin. No, absolutely. I've never been big on going in big on one player. Again, I was a part of that a couple of times. The one time I remember was at Adalius Thomas in New England. We went in big for a player that we thought was going to change the fortunes of our team. That didn't happen, or improve the fortunes of our team. So to me, Colin, I've never been big on spending. Again, you can sign individual players for big deals, but what you're trying to do is build a team, because teams are what win championships.
So the one head scratcher for me, I really like Ron Rivera and where Washington is going, and they get Ryan Fitzpatrick. Now, I could make an argument. I would have stayed with Alex Smith just for leadership, or gone after Sam Darnold for some athleticism. I do wonder the messaging to the locker room to get a kind of gunslinger, 38-year-old, last year, 13 TDs, 8 picks. I don't quite get that. I would have just run Alex Smith back, and I know he's limited, but he's a leader. I can sell that to my guys. He was 5-1 as a starter. Explain what Washington's doing here.
Well, again, I don't know exactly what they're doing, but I understand your desire to possibly want Alex Smith. They have a lot more intel on his health, on his future. Potentially it's a risk they just didn't want to take, because the makeup of Alex Smith is rare. It's special. So they bring in Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think they paid him up to what is going to be $10 million. If you look at that, the fact that their quote-unquote now starting quarterback is only $10 million, they still have plenty of cap space and cash that they can spend at the position of quarterback. So even though they did this, it's different but similar to what the Patriots did with Cam Newton. They've given him a backup quarterback contract, and their quarterback of the future and possibly their starter for this year is not on the roster. What this is a bridge quarterback or a hold the fort quarterback, to use an old phrase from Coach Parcells. This is a hold the fort kind of situation. They need to have someone that can line up and they can start games with, but their other quarterback is not on the roster yet. That may come through the draft. That may come through free agency. It may be a trade. Because here's the deal, Colin. There are more quarterbacks out there than there are starting positions available, right? This is a business with supply and demand and or musical chairs. And there's still a bunch of quarterbacks standing out there right now.
You know, it's interesting. There's a story out, and I don't think it's a secret, that Pete Carroll really likes Sam Darnold. Now, he knows he's not as good as Russell Wilson. But when you make a potential move as big as moving Russell Wilson, that feels like to me about two coaches in the league have that power. If you were working in Seattle and Pete's like, I told Joy earlier, I feel like Pete is telling us, listen, we don't have to be best friends, but if you call me out publicly, I'm losing the locker room, and you can lose games in this league. You can't lose the locker room. And that it kind of feels like Pete's drawing a line in the sand that you're taking stuff public. We just can't do this. Do you think right now they are having John Snyder, Pete Carroll? Are these real discussions? Is it more fantasy football? How deep do you think it goes with this discussion?
I don't know how deep it is, Colin, because, again, it's always difficult to speculate what's going on inside of another building. But I think you hit a very, very important point here, Colin. The fact that Russell Wilson and or his surrogates chose to take family business publicly, probably not a good idea. Pete Carroll doesn't deserve that. John Snyder doesn't deserve that. I have seen so many situations and circumstances where coaches and or front office and players didn't necessarily like one another a whole lot, but they had a common goal that was not just about themselves. It was about a greater good. And I've never been a big fan of taking family business publicly. So something happened here, but I think you hit on a really, really important point here, Colin. What they're going to do, what they're really talking about, what is, just chatter, I'm not sure. But you're right. There's only two coaches probably in the National Football League that have the cachet that would be able to move on from a quarterback like Russell Wilson. But here's the other big thing that I learned early on in this league. If you're going to make a decision like that, it all sounds good. It all looks good on paper, but you better have a solution to the problem before you create a problem like that for your football team. Because if you do that as a coach or a general manager, you're telling your locker room that you are willing to sacrifice wins by moving on from such a great player.
Yeah. Finally, Drew Brees retired. I just read this morning that you went to West Lafayette. You went to Purdue. I imagine it was cold because it's always cold there. And little Drew Brees, your thoughts when you saw him, and did you envision some of his success?
Colin, what's crazy is I actually went out there because this was the 2000 season. We were going to go into our what was going to be our second draft in 2001, and we had to rebuild our offensive line. So I was actually out there to go see Matt Light, who was their starting left tackle at that time. And I knew that Drew Brees was a good quarterback, but oh, by the way, we had drafted a Big Ten quarterback the year before, that guy from Michigan, and we thought he had a chance to be okay. But I went out there that day, and the two best leaders on the field were Drew Brees and Matt Light. They had a team that was loaded. As you know, that year they won the Big Ten. They went to the Rose Bowl.
Yep.
But to watch Drew Brees, and again, he was a really conflicting name in the draft world, in the scouting world, because of his size. But I watched how that guy prepared, how he competed in practice, the attention to detail. He was on top of everything and everyone, every moment of practice. And yes, there was a coaching staff there, but Drew Brees' his attention to detail was unbelievable. And he had this ability to jump people when they weren't being serious, when they weren't doing what they were supposed to be doing, to having a good time in practice, but also to let everyone know that this was serious business. And I tell you, it was one of those situations where I went out to see, Matt Light and a couple of other players, and I was going to be looking at Brees, but I walked away saying, wow, that guy's got a chance to be really good. But truth be told, I was concerned about the height, but Drew Brees is one of the best things to happen to the National Football League, and I wish him all the best. But the league is a lesser place without Drew Brees playing in it next year.
Yeah, Scott Pioli at Scott Pioli51 on Twitter. Great seeing you again, NFL Network. Appreciate you stopping by.
Thanks, Colin. Great to be with you again.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.